Well, here we are. This is officially the furthest north I've ever been in the UK. For 8 days, we are driving the NC500, an 800-kilometre ring road running around the epic sights of Scotland's north coast. So buckle up as we experience the highs and the lows of Scotland's Route 66. You join us at the start of day 6, where we woke up in one of the more unusual hotels that you can find in the Scottish Highlands. Hello and welcome back to the NC500 Road Trip, 8 days on Scotland's Route 66. Today we're leaving mainland Britain's most remote hotel and heading to mainland Britain's most northerly point at John O'Groats, but not before I have my full Scottish breakfast. So let's go and get it. After filling up on mainland Britain's most remote breakfast, we grabbed our bags and headed to the car once again. Take a sword for the road. If you saw the last episode, you'll know that we took a little detour off the NC500 to spend a night in mainland Britain's most remote hotel, which was a really great experience. Who's this?
I don't know, but he said that.
But that morning we were excited to get to somewhere that we'd always wanted to see.
Just walking off into the sunset together.
We've got about 70 miles to cover today, which includes our stop at John O'Groats and a couple of castles afterwards, and we're spending the night in a town called Wick, which is a little further around the coast. A few years back, me and Emma actually went to Land's End, which is the most southerly point in Britain, down in Cornwall, so this is going to feel a bit like completing the set. So let's do it.
It's a stag sighting on top of the hill there. Oh, he's trotting off.
He's running.
Oh, and another one.
There's another one.
Wow.
We followed the lonely road away from the hotel and through the village of Kimbrace, and from there we turned back onto the NC500, where we were met with some beautiful views over the coastline.
Oh, hello. Excuse me, mate.
Well, joining back up with the NC500 definitely brings you back to civilization. Lots more cars on the road, there's some busier towns. And now we are about 15 minutes away from John O'Groats. John O'Groats is named after Jan de Groot, a 15th century Dutchman who ran a ferry service to the Orkney Islands from this very spot, a service that still runs to this day. The area is now most well known as the end of an extreme walking, driving and cycling trail stretching all the way down to Land's End in Cornwall, the longest possible distance in mainland Britain, marked by the iconic Journey's End sign where everybody comes to take their souvenir photo. But despite all the fanfare, John O'Groats isn't actually the most northerly point in Britain. You can find that down the road at Dunnet Point. But this still remains the place where most people come to visit, and let's not ruin that fun. Well, the John O'Groats tourist experience is actually very, very nice. It's actually quite cute here. It's a nicer experience in general than Land's End, which is a bit more tacky. But this has got all sorts. There's lots of cafes and little restaurants. There's even a brewery. And the whole thing overlooks a tiny little harbour, and you can get ferries there to the Orkney Islands or to Shetland. And then way, way off in the distance across the sea is Norway, which is kind of crazy to think of. And of course, while you're here, you have to get a photo with that iconic John O'Groats sign. So now we've got a photo here, and we've got a photo at the sign down in Land's End as well. So set completed. And now we're just walking slightly further down the coast to check out the Duncansby Stacks, which looks like a really stunning spot as well. We started the walk along the John O'Groats trail, but quickly realised that it would take us quite a while to walk all the way to the stacks. So instead, we turned back around and drove a short distance down the road. So we didn't walk to the stacks in the end. We drove right up to Duncansby Head, where there's a small little lighthouse, and it's a much shorter walk down. In fact, they're just in the distance. There is some stunning coastline to see on the walk from the car park, but the main event really steals the show. It's very windy, but this view is amazing. Oh, wow, that was great. The stacks themselves actually reminded us of driving on the Great Ocean Road in Australia, where you have the 12 Apostles. And obviously there's a lot more of those stacks, but these two are actually probably, in terms of size, a bit bigger than those. They're very impressive. The camera, as always, doesn't do it justice, but that was a really good stop. If you come to John O'Groats, do the stacks as well. We now have a very leisurely drive down to Wick, and on the way there's a couple of cool looking ruined castles that are right on the edge of the cliffs. So let's go and check them out. This section of the NC500 is home to a few stops that are far less visited than John O'Groats, and that might be because they're actually quite hard to find. Wow, this looks a bit eerie. We just followed the directions on Google Maps, but there's no signage from the road that says anything about any castle. We drove down this kind of track, then arrived at those abandoned shells of farmhouses, it looks like. But apparently you could just start walking this way towards the sea, and eventually you'll see a castle. Well, here it is. And it's kind of cool. It almost blends into the rock on the cliff. Almost looks like it's part of the same structure. A pirate fortress called Lammerborg was first built here in 1140, but it was later remodelled and renamed as Bucholie Castle in 1661. Over the decades that followed, it fell into disrepair, leaving this surreal ruin sitting on an isolated cliff edge. Well, we've kind of perched up on this like natural bridge that goes across to the castle, and it gets very, very narrow. It's a really steep drop down on both sides. But the view of the castle is amazing. It feels like this is sort of a hidden gem in this part of the NC500 because there's no signs for it, there's nobody else here, and it's a really, really lovely spot. And there was plenty more where that came from. Well, we're now trying to find Old Keiss Castle, and this is proving also quite difficult to find. There's no signs, and everywhere on Google Maps is leading onto private roads, so we're just trying to figure out where the best place is to pull over and walk across the fields to just get a view of the castle at least. Well, we've just parked up by Keiss Harbour or Keiss Harbour, and it absolutely stinks here, but the walk is that way, away from the harbour, and we've actually already seen a view of the castle, so it shouldn't take too long to get there. But it turned out that this walk along the coastline had much more to offer than just another castle. There's some sort of pillbox here, little bunker. Well, actually, it's quite a big bunker. Check it out. World War II saw the north coast of Scotland become a high defensive priority, and the beach here at Sinclair's Bay was transformed into a huge minefield, with these little pillboxes fitted with machine guns, constantly on the lookout for invaders.
Come on in.
Well, the castle is just up ahead, but first, there's another pillbox here. And I bet this one has great views.
How's it look? Go in.
The first record of Keiss Castle dates back to 1623, and this one was never built as a fortress as such. It was more of a towered house, becoming ruined by the early 17th century. Well, here we are at another amazing castle view. Just like the last place, it does look like you can walk a bit closer along, but because of the wind, it's probably not worth the risk. And this view's great as it is. Well, those last two stops were really worthwhile. I'm very glad we chose to stop there. And once again, it was only us and a very small group of other people at this site, so it's another little hidden gem. Now we're going to get back on the road and head to the town of Wick, where we have a B&B booked for the night. So I guess I'll see you there.
Tell you what, the weather here is so confusing. I'm pretty sure I'm very, very sunburnt, but then you could be walking in the sun and then the wind will pick up and it's freezing cold. And then a few seconds later, it might start raining. And then a few seconds after that, it'll be sunny again. Very, very confusing. So you need to pack a lot of different clothes for Scotland.
By mid-afternoon, we had already completed our driving for the day, arriving in the town of Wick, where we planned to stay for the night. Well, this feels like a complete world away from where we started today. Wick is an old harbour town known for its herring fishing industry, dating back to the 1700s. In fact, at one point it was the largest herring fishing port in all of Europe. These days, the town has a population of around 7,000 people, although that number is apparently declining. Despite there being a Wetherspoons and a few pubs and restaurants in the centre, the whole area did feel a little bit quiet, which could be pandemic related, but something tells me it's been like this for longer. The harbour was nice with lots of history, but it's probably not a place that you'll want to spend too much time. It's funny, we were joking with our host last night at the Garvote Hotel about how he didn't really think that Wick was worth going to, or that he said, well, at least don't rush there. And we were quite excited to get back to somewhere with more going on, but it turns out he might have been right. But Wick does have plenty of options for accommodation, including a place called the Clachan, where we had booked into a very nice room for the night. We just checked into our B&B in Wick. Here we are. This is the room. It was £90 for the night, including a cooked breakfast. And you know what? I think this might be the nicest hotel room yet. It's very clean, very smart. It's got a nice big bed. And the bathroom is really, really nice. It's just down here and through this door. It's kind of a narrow shape, but it looks lovely. And then back in the main room again, you've got this dressing table with your teas and your coffee station there, and a TV up on the wall. Brilliant. And we were there today at the lighthouse. It was actually our shortest day of driving today, only 70 miles, so it did feel quite chilled out, and it's actually quite nice to get to a base a bit earlier in the day so we can just relax. And tonight I think we'll just go out and try and find somewhere nice to eat, have an early night, and get up tomorrow for another full-on day on the NC500. I'll see you then. Next time on the NC500 Road Trip Series, we visit two very different castles on Scotland's north coast. One epic ruin and one epic French chateau.